All right, hello everybody, and welcome to 10 Forward. My name is James. I'm a lieutenant commander on the Enterprise. Today, we are going to be talking about the new movie that just came out, Section 31. Is it worth it? Should you watch it? We're going to talk about that right now.
Well, Jim, you made me watch this.
It's my fault.
Yes. Yes, Jim. This is all
I
your
got you to
fault.
watch New Trek, and it's
You got
awful.
me to watch something new Trek, and it's awful. For the record, it seems like Alex Kurtzman, who I think is the bane of my existence. I never thought I would hate a producer more than Rick Berman. I don't know. He's a complete disaster. I don't know how he keeps making this crap. You got some hot take? All right, Jim. You're the host of this show, dude. Just fucking take it away, man.
I'm just kind of riffing. Let's go. So, did you watch anything that from Discovery?
Well, I did. I watched, I think, half of season 1. And that was
Okay,
about
so
it.
we're on the same page then. I only watched maybe three-quarters of season one. My very first takeaway was good on Paramount to not put a Klingon in this movie, because if they did, everybody would be like, "That's not a Klingon. What is
It
that?"
doesn't look like a Klingon. It looks like a fish.
My overall opinion is it's not a good movie, but there are pieces I genuinely liked. And I know you're not going to like that.
No.
But hear me out. The overall movie, the overall story, stupid. It really is. You know, you got these two love interests, blah, 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 blah. Don't care about that. When you get the hodgepodge crew, I didn't like that. Starfleet Section 31 is supposed to be the best of the best, the gray Jedi, the equivalent of, got to keep balance in the universe, and we got to bend some rules if we need to keep that balance. Who are these people? Why are they here? They're a totally hodgepodge misfit crew.
Well, I have something to say to that. That's my biggest problem with the film, is the overall concept of the film. First off, I hate Giorgio. I hate her. I don't
hate
like
her.
the actress. Everybody likes her, but I think she's a terrible actress. She's
I
awful
disagree.
in this.
She's a good actor. I think she's a fine actor, but she's been playing this character for four seasons and now a movie, and
Mhm.
it's an awful character. And I really don't think I can blame her, especially at the end when she was crying when that thing happened. I thought she did a good job.
Here's what I wanted to say really quick about Section 31. You could make this movie, right? Don't get me wrong. Because clearly what they were going for was a Guardians of the Galaxy Suicide Squad kind of thing, right?
100%.
Here's the thing with both of those movies, right? Or both of those concepts. At least with Suicide Squad, I'm not quite sure with Guardians of the Galaxy because I'm not a big Marvel guy. With Suicide Squad, they are the Suicide Squad. Calling this film Section 31 is an insult to Section 31 because they are just a part of not even like a sliver of Section 31. They are just one tiny, tiny, tiny cog in a machine. And the thing that really drove me nuts about this is if you really wanted to make a Section 31 film, which I don't think you should, because to me, Section 31, it's like the Borg. The less you know about Section 31, the more terrifying they are.
They are.
And the more you make them like a shadow organization, maybe like the Tal Shiar, for example, the better off they'll be. That's one reason why the Tal Shiar is one of my favorite underground organizations ever, is because of how mysterious there are and how little we know of them. I would not have made this movie like this. I would have made this film very film noir, and I would have made this very much so, and kind of hear me out about this. Section 31 is the SS of the Federation. Make them really dark, make them unbelievably competent at what they're doing. They are the best of the best that Starfleet has. They are so good that Starfleet doesn't want them, is how I would look at it, because I would treat Section 31 as they are the most radical they could be in terms of believing what the Federation does, and that's why they're willing to do all this nasty stuff. Yeah.
You look at Sloane in DS9,
Yeah.
and that is exactly it. And I don't know much about the SS, but like he's wearing an all black uniform and he gets onto the station and under all the security protocols with no problem. But he doesn't like joke about it. He's
No.
always serious. And that's what Section 31 needs to be. This wasn't supposed to be a movie. This
That
was
was what I was
supposed
going
to
to say.
be, and it is clear as day. And that's what I want to say is a good thing. I don't hate the characters. If these
Oh.
characters were in a different story and they were fleshed out over 2 or 3 seasons, oh my goodness, you might have something there. And the same thing with,
There's so many
good.
scenes in this movie where they try to make up for character by making them quirky, and
They're
that
one dimensional.
to me is the biggest no-no.
Because I know you're going to point out all the flaws in the movie. I took it as a personal challenge to find the glimmer of hope.
I wanted to ask you, Jim, because you're the cinematographer out of the two of us.
All
Dude,
of it.
what
What is
the
this,
hell?
1930s France with all the zooming in and ooh,
Oh my god. And there's so many angles, and why was the camera shaking all the time for no reason at
all the
all?
time and
Um
constantly moving?
and it
Why?
looks nothing like Star Trek. You want to know what this felt like? It felt like a cheap fan film of Star Wars. Or not a cheap fan film, a more expensive fan film of Star Wars is what this feels like it was trying to forcefully be cool. To
Yes.
be hip with
Yes.
the young people. And I'm like, that's stupid. The whole pub scene, it looks like something from a Quentin Tarantino film that doesn't really fit with Star Trek.
Wait,
I
wait, wait,
didn't
wait, wait, wait.
care.
We can't say that the bar scene is not Star Trek. There's a
No,
bar,
it's not
there's a
Star
pen
Trek. It doesn't
forward.
look like Star Trek, Jim. It's not that it's not Star Trek. It doesn't look like Star Trek at all.
I think it's not shot like Star Trek. Another thing that I like, though, is not especially, but in the bar scene, I liked a lot of the costumes. I think they were all very well thought out, except for the Section 31's S. He looked like Syndrome from The Incredibles. I
Oh
thought
yeah,
he
you
looked
totally
bad.
did. Oh my god,
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
couldn't get that out of my head. I was like, oh, it's Syndrome. A lot of their hairs like change randomly throughout the movie. Like Starfleet Girl, she has like a bob cut at the beginning, and then throughout the whole movie, she's like a brunette with her hair on her shoulders, and then at the end, again, she's a bob cut, and I'm like, was that the same character, or like what happened with her?
Well, you mentioned that this is supposed to be a full season, kind of condensed into a movie. The thing that I really wanted to bring up is that modern Trek has three has three tropes. Then this movie checks all of those boxes: revenge, super weapon, laser shooting into the sky. And this
I
film
would not disagree with that.
has all three of those. It's like I don't understand modern Trek's obsession with super weapon.
It's because we need to have a villain. We need to have a thing to stop.
But do it like Deep
Correct.
Space Nine.
Or any other Star Trek show. It was
Why is it
so
always a
obvious.
super weapon?
It was so obvious. And I said that too. When I actually watched with Jen and Rob. I said that as soon as I saw that thing, I was like, really? We're going down this route? Like we couldn't come up with anything better than, oh, it's going to destroy the entire universe?
And
And
first, the twist in the film is not a twist at all because you can see it coming a mile away,
a
and that
mile
is
away.
who the villain is. Why does it always need to be revenge? I can tell you why they always do it, and that's because of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan like established just about everything Star Trek. Including you need to have a big baddie, you have to have him wanting to do something that's really bad, and we have to defeat him, and that spirit of revenge.
Yeah, but
Khan wants to kill
Han
Kirk.
is a good, complex character.
Well, it's not just that, but it's also like it hadn't been done very much before in Star Trek at that point, so it was brand new, relatively. The problem is that became the trope for Star Trek,
I don't
particularly the
disagree.
movies, particularly in the movie.
We're,
Sick
we're,
of
we're
it.
talking about stealing ideas. I took a couple mental notes too about stealing ideas from Deep Space Nine, and I am not happy about that. DS9 has a stable wormhole between the Alpha Quadrant and the Gamma Quadrant. What does this movie have? A stable ion storm between our universe and the mirror universe. Why are we stealing this
I don't
idea?
think they stole it from Deep Space Nine. I'll be honest. I don't think they stole it from Deep Space Nine. I genuinely believe that the writers just didn't know what to do and just said, "Okay, screw it, wormhole. Oh, well, we can't do a wormhole because we always do wormholes. Make it an ion storm." I just think it was lazy writing. Not that they
I
stole it.
agree too. You still get, all these different species coming to the station, and I thought that was great. The reason that I say that I think it does kind of take away from DS9, spoilers alert, at the end, the weapon goes off, which I hate, but it closes the link. In DS9 they
Well,
did that. They
that
set
link,
off the mines that destroyed the link. And I just couldn't help but notice, hey, Odo did that. It's the same thing in here. There's so many stories that we could tell with different races and species, and we take a lot of notes from DS9, and I think that's great. People like DS9. It's got like a cult following since it came out. Don't steal those ideas and kind of
I don't think they stole the ideas. I think they just didn't care. In fact, I don't think the writers watched any Star Trek at all, even though they all worked on Discovery, which that explains a lot. If you were going to tell me to stand there and be like, Adam, you absolutely 100% had to make a suicide. You have to make a Section 31 film, but it has to be kind of like Suicide Squad. I would have been there and would have been like, okay, instead of it making it like Guardians of the Galaxy and all of them, I'm going to make it like The Dirty Dozen, which is a film from the 60s. It's a World War II film, more military, more intrigue. Certainly would have made it a longer movie. This movie's only like an hour and a half, and
it's an hour and 34 minutes with credits.
And it is
It's short.
It doesn't slow down at all. It's hard to keep track of. Not in terms of the story. It's hard to keep track of in terms of, oh, we're here now.
If you mean in terms of them jumping between mirror universes in the past and the present, I've 100%
No,
agree.
I mean like location to, and this was immediately when I knew I was going to hate this film. According to this film, the Terran Empire chooses their empire by having a battle royale-esque fight to the death.
Yeah, it made me think of like Hunger Games.
In TOS, it is established because of the episode that introduces the mirror universe. It is established that Spock eventually took over the Terran Empire, and the Terran Empire was destroyed because of it at some point. And we see the ramifications of that in Deep Space Nine in the mirror universe episodes, which are always a lot of fun. So I don't understand why they have to, because they specifically choose children, it seems, to fight to the death, or teenagers to fight to the death.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably like 18. I thought that, yeah, it just sounded like a battle royale. It sounded like Hunger
Uh,
Games. It sounded like Squid Game.
it
It's
did, yeah. It supposedly ties into this whole theme of fate that Star Trek New Trek seems to be obsessed with, in that it's all whimsical dialogue and everybody talks like this for some reason. Fuck off with the fake shit. I don't understand why suddenly Star Trek has gotten very spiritual over several big things. Because even in Deep Space Nine, which is by far the most spiritual show out of the OG shows, because of the whole prophets and everything like that with the Bajorans and everything like that. Even those, they establish that that's only one tiny facet of the show, or this is just one facet of the show. There's multiple layers. And the reason why I bring this up isn't just because of Section 31. This appears to be something that Discovery gets kind of obsessed with as well, and as well as some of the other Star Trek content. And I would even argue the 3 J.J. Abrams films has this in them, this idea of fate. Picard certainly does it.
You tend to dive into these a little bit more, so let me give my more surface level, but I think actually is very similar. The problem with New Trek, and the only reason that I like Strange New Worlds is because this is one that does not really follow that rule. It's about a character, not a ship and its
This is
crew.
true. This is very true. I didn't even think of
And
that about
that's
that, Jim.
why it doesn't work. But then when you look at Strange New Worlds, it's the Enterprise crew.
Yep.
It's Pike and Spock and Uhura, and you can have episodes that focus on one character, but at the end of the day, it's the crew coming together and the ship is a character. Picard doesn't have a ship. Picard doesn't have a crew. Discovery is all about Michael Burnham and Captain Georgiou. It's not about their crews. And that's the problem. It's this one person is the fate of the universe relies on this one person. And it's like, no, that's not Star Trek. Star Trek is everyone coming together
Coming
to
together,
stop this
yeah.
problem.
And granted, I think Section 31, the movie, kind of does that in a way, because I do
It
like the
does.
idea of the two fights happening where they're trying to, you have the crew on the garbage ship, which was an interesting concept, chucking
He kept
garbage
saying like,
at
we don't have photon torpedoes, we got garbage.
we've got
Okay, that was
garbage.
funny.
That wavelength thing that Giorgio uses.
I thought that was cool. Before you say you don't
The
like it.
entire time in my head, I'm like, no, it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. It doesn't make sense, no, but
No,
it's a cool
no.
idea, because if that really happened, suddenly she'd be falling through the floor and she'd be in space and she
I
would
was
die.
thinking the same thing too, because like they were going through the walls, but they didn't
Yeah.
go through
But it
the
didn't.
floor.
Why can't you go through the floor? That's actually one of my problems, because that superpower is something that the Flash has as well. And every time he does that, I go, "Why aren't you falling through the floor right now?"
That's
the
also
thing,
established.
the thing that made me that I kept thinking in my head when I was seeing that was, man, this could have come in handy with the Borg.
Getting through their shields. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did toy with there are episodes where people are out of phase and they
There
don't
are.
get into fights, but it's them trying to get back in phase with everyone.
There's an episode of TOS that does that kind of. The
I know
Tholian
there's at
web
least one
kind of
or
goes into
two
that.
in TNG.
In TNG, it's there's two. There's one where it's like time freezes, so they're not really phasing into another world, and Picard starts going crazy. It's my favorite Ensign Rowe episode, where her and Geordi
Yes, are out of phase.
are out of phase, and I genuinely love that episode. It's one of
Great
my
episode.
favorites. Yeah. So
And they brought Bro back for one episode of Picard to kill her.
to kill her.
Awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awful. But I have one more good thing that I want to talk about and see your reaction.
All right.
The little microbe in the Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think if he was not a bad guy, he was actually a good guy. Very similar to Yaphet, going into mechanical things and being able to control them temporarily. But in doing so, when he leaves his body, it's on autopilot and it can only do minute tasks. That is a cool concept, and I think that's fairly original.
It is for Star Trek. Can you confirm something for me with this? Because I cannot remember for the life of me. Was that Vulcan an actual Vulcan, or was
No.
he a
He's
robot?
an android.
He is
He's
an
a robot.
android. Okay, thank God.
Yeah.
Because that whole concept disturbs me like there's no tomorrow. If that was just some random Vulcan.
And that's why I say I don't necessarily hate it, because
Oh yeah, it's
Jen
a
said the
terrifying
same thing.
idea.
She was like, "That's not a Vulcan. This
Oh
is
yeah.
an insult to Vulcans." But then you realize this guy's not a good guy. He likes getting on people's nerves. He's doing this intentionally. He picked a Vulcan as a body to just annoy people. He can't communicate with us unless he's in a bigger thing.
Yeah.
I like that. That was cool.
I like, again, this is another thing where it's like I love the concept.
Yes, the concept.
Why did you have to do this in a Suicide Squad style?
Awful.
Nonsense. There's so many. Yeah, that's actually my problem, because if you look at a lot of the individual elements of this, I go like the concept of that sort of of Giorgio and the other Asian dude kind of loving each other, I think is actually a very fascinating idea to have an overarching villain. I would not have done the revenge plot, but I certainly would have had, oh, they were long lost lovers and now they are on opposite sides of a great conflict, or
Kinda like a Romeo
coming.
and Juliet. But yeah.
Yeah, a more disturbing kind of version of that.
But
and,
like that thing. And
well, that and
I
that
don't
stems
think it would be a
from
romantic love either. I think it's literally just a connection.
I think it's heavily implied that they were an item, I believe, in the.
Well, then that makes the ending even worse.
That's actually something that Star Trek has not done. They have so many opportunities to do something like this, but they always kind of shy away from it. The one time they didn't really shy away from it was actually in Deep Space Nine, Eddington, and I was like, because it's kind of established that Sisko really likes him and like respects him, and then all of a sudden he
he's
gets
security.
Yeah, and then he gets stabbed in the back by him, or he feels he's been stabbed in the back, and that's actually one of my
The
favorite arcs of
the
Deep Space
Javert to
Nine.
my
To
it's
Jean
from Les
Valjean.
Mis.
Jean
Yeah,
Valjean.
the Javert to Jean
Yeah,
Valjean.
and I love that. That's again one of my favorite arcs of
I
Deep
did
Space
too.
Nine. That's really the only time I feel Star Trek has really had the balls to do that. That was actually going to be one of the original concepts of Star Trek Insurrection, was that it was going to be Picard organizing this insurrection because he wants to defend these people down on this planet, and it was going to be Riker saying, "No, we need this. The Federation says that this is what it's going to be. By God, I'm going to stand with the Federation, even though I'll hate fighting you. I'm going to." And to me, that fits perfectly with Riker, because you have episodes like Measure of a Man, for example, where Riker absolutely hates the fact that he now has to, testify and go against Data, who he considers his friend, but that's what protocol is telling him to do.
I think you bring up a good point. It's hard to do that. It's easy to not do that.
Or it's easy to write that kind of conflict and say it's all about revenge. And I'm
I
like, no,
think it
it's
needs to be also later on in the series too. Like once, you have your captain and your first officer
yeah,
that are well established, they can have their quarrels throughout. But then, yeah, at the end,
uh-huh.
say in season 5 of 7,
Mm-hmm.
all right, now we're gonna have 6 episodes, kind of like what DS9 does a
What
lot
Deep
and
Space Nine does, yeah.
Enterprise does a lot. It's an overarching thing. There's a tension between these two characters. What's gonna happen? I don't think. I mean, it can be done in one episode, but I'd love to see something like that.
I will say this: I was happy to see another Deltan. She keeps saying that there is a race of alien that is they are the only ones immune to sexy time with the Deltan's charm, because one of the things with the Deltans is that they're an unbelievably sexually enticing race.
I guess I
Which
didn't
is
even pick up on
which
that.
is which is
Oops.
why in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Ilea is a Deltan. And that is why there is specifically a little scene and a line when Kirk finds out, oh, there's going to be a Deltan on board. She says, and I quote, "My oath of celibacy is on record, Captain."
That's probably why I didn't even remember her, because she was there and gone.
The other note that I have is it has to do with the constant chatter, and there's one scene in particular where it really drove me up the wall, and it was after the interrogation scene, where they've got that guy with all the cybernetics all over his head and everything like that, and then the ship blows up, right? After
Anyway,
it crashes and we have all of our characters down on the planet, they would not shut up. It made me really want to go, because I could understand what they're going for. They're going for like a noir. They wanted a noir style film, and I'm like, all I could do was think of was like the Sherlock Holmes episodes of TNG, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh God, you know how much better those were handled.
When they did the Who Done It, and it's like, oh, who's the betrayer? I knew as soon as Zeph was gone, I knew it wasn't Zeph.
Oh
But
yeah.
then I did think it was Starfleet Girl. I did.
Oh, I
I was
didn't.
like, oh, nobody's gonna think that it's Starfleet Girl because she's Starfleet and you can trust Starfleet. So like I actually fell for that. And then that's why I like the Vulcan microbe thing
Mm-hmm.
more, because he just took over Zeph's, which, oh my God, gruesome when he took over his suit again and they're on those carts and that's a dead body and it's just a fucking robot around a dead body
Well,
moving it. That's kind of gruesome.
I knew it was going to be him. I knew it was going to be him,
I
and
didn't.
and
I should have picked up on it.
I'll tell you why I knew it was going to be him. Because if it was the Federation girl, that would have been too smart.
See, I thought that's why I thought it was the Federation girl. I was like, oh yeah, they're not going to do that.
I'm like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, that would have been interesting. This is a film made for the lowest possible common denominator, who thinks we don't have a brain, therefore the movie doesn't have a brain, therefore they're not going to do that.
The other thing that I really hated at the end, and we're talking about, okay, we do have this emotional connection between Giorgio and San, and
Yes,
I felt for them.
I did.
And she had to, you're supposed to feel for them, and she kills them at the end. And what does she immediately do? She grabs the Section 31's hand and they stare out the window. What
Yeah, I
a
didn't get that.
freaking insult. What, how do you love him all of a sudden? How are you getting over, you're supposedly your lover of the past 30 years, even though you treated him like a slave,
Didn't she
and
think she was?
now
Didn't
you're
she
with
think he
this.
was dead?
She did, yeah.
She did. Yeah. Okay.
That's only fairly recently. Like she was
Yeah.
over in the mirror universe treating him like a slave for 20 or 30 years, and then
Yes.
she thought she was
Yes.
dead. He
Yes.
was dead.
Yeah.
And now he's alive, and I love him, and I want to save him, and he's great. I can pull him back. Which, by the way, why is she all of a sudden good? What because
Well,
of him?
that's a big thing that Red Letter Media got into that I actually
I didn't
completely
get
agree
that.
with. She is Space Hitler. I don't understand why we're supposed to like Space Hitler, and
That's
that's
why
what they
Sloane
wanted to do with
works.
Giorgio, and that is exactly why Sloane works.
I don't
Um,
like Sloane,
he's
but I like
great.
Section 31 because he
Yeah,
does what needs to be done. I don't
and
want to like Giorgio, and
yeah,
I don't like her. I don't
yeah.
want to have sympathy for her.
It takes a lot from a character and from a writing standard to make a villain that we hate for all the right reasons. Like the good acting, good character development, mystery and stuff like that. The best example is probably Joffrey from the Game of Thrones series, or Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. We love hating them. But yeah, I have nothing else to really say other than that I highly recommend you guys watch Star Trek Renegades, which is a Tim Russ fan film that came out back in 2014 or 2015. And it is way better than this film, and it has a very similar concept to this film, and actually has Star Trek alumni in it, such as Walter Koenig and, before she died, Nichelle Nichols are in
Oh
it,
wow.
and have prominent roles in it. And again, Tim Russ directed it. He wanted it to kind of be a show in of itself, but CBS really shot that down, which is why I find it kind of ironic they're doing what they're doing now. Star Trek Renegades. It's still a little not quite my style in terms of what Star Trek is, but it certainly feels a lot more like Star Trek than this.
I have one last note to say. We don't like this because we like old Star Trek. And it's not to say that these movies are good. They're not. I've had both Rob and my niece say, if this is bad Star Trek, I want to see good Star Trek. My niece
Mhm.
texted me out of the blue. I haven't talked to her in months. And she says, I watched Section 31. I know you don't like it. What's a good Star Trek to watch? Because if this is the bad, the good is really good.
I am very happy to see how relevant, at least in terms of pop culture, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Voyager, those three shows in particular, have been because of New Trek. What New Trek is doing, it's getting new people, younger people, to go back and watch those. That's one reason why I love the MonsterVerse so much, is because they're getting so many new fans of Godzilla to go back and watch the older films from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then the 90s. And I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm also very appreciative that, especially out of all the shows that like have been in pop culture talk, it makes me very happy how well Deep Space Nine is doing now. Deep Space Nine finally has found a true audience, because it is truly my favorite. And, if it's best, serialization, it makes it work.
See, I knew you were going to point out a lot of negatives, and I knew I had a lot too, but I wanted to pull out those nuggets.
I did. I believe I messaged you when I was watching this, Jim. Like, I fell asleep 3 times watching this, so I constantly had to like rewind it. And I remember, I think one of my messages to you was, "What the fuck, did we make this?"
Yes.
Like,
I don't want to know what the budget of this movie was. All right, thanks for watching that episode. I told you it was going to be interesting. We talked about the pros and the cons of both Section 31 and just Star Trek in general, but I think that you can see that there is nuggets. There is hope for Star Trek in the future. I think if we condense it, really focus on those nuggets, there's a good chance that Star Trek can continue to thrive. Anyway, my name is James. I don't really have a YouTube or anything, but I hope that I'll be on some more shows with Adam in the future. And so, Adam, why don't you pimp yourself out? It's your channel.
well, yeah, I don't really need to pimp myself out because it's my channel, but yeah, this is where we will be having Welcome to 10 Forward going forward. I think this is a crazy way to start the show, start this new season. So I'm looking forward to more episodes with you, my friend.
Thanks for having me.